All right. Welcome, everyone, to another fantastic episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. John, how was that?
It was good, It was a good interview. I like Ben a lot. That was our guest. I think a lot of people will take a lot away from that when it talks about not only jiu-jitsu, but some other interesting parts of life.
Yeah, today we have Ben Phelps on. He is a jiu-jitsu purple belt, and his story, if you have follow social media at all, you might have seen him on, if you follow the My White Belt page. He's lost 160 pounds and is a big advocate for jiu-jitsu weight loss. He does personal coaching for people for macronutrients and whatnot. And he is a great guy, super down to earth, a lot of fun to talk to. I had a blast. He also does a podcast, the What Now podcast. And if you guys want to follow him, everything will be down in the description below. But he is a great guy to talk to. He's very relatable to a lot of people because he's an everyday dad. He has kids. He doesn't do jiu-jitsu 8-10 times a week. He's like 2 to 3 times a week is perfect for him, just like most of us.
But still a pretty active competitor, apparently.
Yeah, he's competed, I think he said like 4 or 5 times at each belt, and is looking to do the same at purple belt too. But yeah, it was a really good interview. You guys let us know what you think. It's nice to talk to people that are super relatable too. Don't get me wrong, I love talking to high-level black belts, but I feel sometimes, and we mentioned this in the episode, sometimes they're a little disconnected from what it's like to be at our level or even a purple, you know what I mean, and things along those nature. So it was good to talk to him. It's nice. I kind of want to talk to more people like brown or purple, blue, and whatnot,
for sure,
that have interesting stories. So hopefully you guys find some value in this. He is very inspirational and down to earth. So if you guys like him, let us know. And if you want to see us talk to more people like this, let us know too. So, but yeah, John, what was our beverage of the day?
I was going to say it was nothing too exciting. We just went for coffee today.
Our episode that just released was Sunday coffee with Elbows Tight. Today it is Monday's coffee with Elbows Tight.
That's
Today's
true.
Memorial
That's true.
Day.
It is.
So
yeah.
if you guys won't be listening to this on Memorial Day, but hopefully you had a good Memorial Day in remembrance and whatnot. And there goes my dog.
A little trivia. What was it called before Memorial Day? It used to have a different name.
What was it?
I'm not telling you. Google it.
Oh, okay.
There's your trivia for the day.
On that note, thank you guys so much for listening. Remember, give us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify. Follow us, Elbows Tight everywhere, elbowstight.com, Elbows Tight Pod on Instagram. And yeah, we guys appreciate it. Let us know what you guys think. We'll talk to you later. Peace. Oh, Ben, do you have your beverage of the day? I completely forgot.
Oh, what's funny is that I have listened to the podcast before. I knew there was a beverage, and I left it. I didn't want to be late. I do have water, which I don't consider an applicable beverage, or I don't think it necessarily counts, but that's all I got for now. So,
well, first of all, I'm going to throw it out there. People that say water doesn't have a flavor, I think that they are lying, because if you've never drank Arrowhead warm, you know for sure that there's flavored water out there, because Arrowhead water warm tastes horrible.
You're not supposed to. It's probably old water, and you're drinking the plastics at that point.
You know what? You know what's so funny? My son,
right?
Charles, my oldest, just told me this. He said, did you know after 2 days of drinking from a plastic water bottle, you have microscopic plastic going into your body? And I was like, no, it's not. It's not true. And then I was like, no, interesting fact.
That's why you're not supposed to leave it in your car. Bottles of water in your car, the heat causes the plastic to decay quicker. That's why it has that funny taste when you leave it in your car.
Ugh.
What?
Yeah.
It's that plastic taste.
But hey, Ben, how's it going today, man?
Oh, I'm great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing fantastic. Super excited to have you on today. 3 dads sitting in a room for about an hour is actually very hard to get going.
We learned, especially as scheduling. Yeah.
Yeah. Ben sent me, it was probably about a 4-paragraph explanation of his weekday extravaganza with his children and jiu-jitsu and all of his busyness. So I was like, just tell me when you can do it. Okay.
Yeah. 4 paragraphs to say I'm only available for these 3 hours.
Yeah. Throughout the entire week, not on a single day. Right. Just 3. So how's your morning going, man?
Good. Well, for me, afternoon. I'm in
Oh, that's
Virginia,
right.
Eastern time.
Yeah.
But I had a good morning, recorded a podcast of my own. And now I have the easy part because I just get to sit here and talk. I don't have to mess with settings or lines of questioning or anything like that. So I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Like literally what I just did for probably about 10 minutes before pressing record. It
I
was
was
just,
thinking that's always the case for me. Travis does most of the work. I
Yeah.
just sit here and talk.
yeah. Yeah.
It
John's
is nice.
John's
I
like,
need
oh,
a
we
Travis.
well, for $1 a day, you can. Now, what's funny is, the quick segue is I was actually thinking about like using the knowledge that I have gained from doing this podcast and then like doing some freelance for people to like help them with their podcast through like social media posts or like, I don't know if you've seen our reels that I make for the podcast, like how they have like B-roll and text on screen and stuff like that. I was like, man, maybe I should start hiring or getting freelance jobs and doing that for people and see if I can make a little bit of side money. So if you're out there, you have a podcast, let me know if that'd be something you're interested in.
And then look at your schedule again. And then be like, actually, maybe I won't.
Yeah, no, that's the main thing holding me back. I'm sure Ben can
always.
attest to that, dude.
Yeah,
Like
always
scheduling
the
is.
main thing.
So how do you fit in your jiu-jitsu during the week with such a busy schedule like you have, man? Do you calendar everything out, or like do you have a personal assistant, or like what is it?
Well, I wish. Like I said, I need a Travis. I need an assistant. I could use a lot of things, but I guess for now it's just me. And I mean, it changes by the season, right? Because my kids, I mean, they're very active, but only for basically spring and fall, right? So then I kind of look at it as my season can be the other. So I get summer and winter, right? So that's typically when I'm training the most and competing. So it really, I have to adjust, right? That's really the easiest way to say it. So like when my kids are doing sports, I just shoot for a minimum 2 classes a week. That's what makes me feel good, right? Even if they're not in sports, like that's the threshold for like feeling like that was not worth it. It's probably not the right term, but it just scratches an itch, right? 3 is like 3 is nice. 3 is what I like. And in a perfect world, which I can only maintain for maybe 2 months cumulative out of the year, it'd be like 4 times a week. But I've only for the last 2 months, 3 months, I've been going 1 to 3 times a week, just depending. So like I kind of, I don't want to say take a back seat, but we definitely have to schedule. It takes a lot of planning.
Yeah, I'm at like 2 times a week right now, and if I'm feeling, like I want to put my marriage on the line, I'll do 3 times the week. You know what I mean? But most weeks it's just 2 times a week if I can make it. And then life gets in the way sometimes. I think we talked about it on one of the previous episodes. Sometimes you get ready for jiu-jitsu and something happens and you can't go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So. And I'll trade that to have my family and everything like that every day of the week. You know what I mean? Jordan Pressinger, like you just talked about, right? He talks about if you're like unmotivated and you don't want to go, do it for the calories, which I'm sure you can attest to also, right? Like
I have used that strategy myself. I didn't know it was formally a strategy, but I have done it.
Yes, just do it.
Yep. You just tell yourself, you're like, I just got to do it for the calories.
Just do it for the calories.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
calorie burn.
Let's get into how you got into jiu-jitsu and the journey leading up to and everything like that. Because if people don't know your story, you actually featured on the My White Belt Instagram page too, showing the before and after of your weight loss and stuff like that. And it's a real inspirational story for a lot of people. And I would love to go through kind of like we don't have to go day by day timeline,
right,
but kind of like how you got from, being your previous self to now being a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and winning a bunch of medals and whatnot. So if you could just give us a brief history of that.
Well, that was flattering, right? And the My White Belt thing was honestly, I didn't even realize he was going to share it. It's like I'd interacted with the page a little bit. So when that came out, I was like, oh my gosh, wow. And then, a lot of people started coming in, which has been nice because as much as I tend to fall into a weight loss clump or a cluster on social media, I really am trying to get more into the jiu-jitsu thing, right? Trying to insert myself in the community, so to speak. So thank you for the chance, I guess. The quick-ish version, right? Give the highlights. I was essentially overweight my whole life, right? Tail as old as time. I got up to just gaining weight constantly, essentially from the time I was born until I was about 24 years old. I had had a handful of attempts to lose weight before then. Didn't work, right? I got up to 333 pounds. That was the heaviest I ever weighed at 24. I'm 6 foot, just for reference, because everyone always asks and I never say it. So I remembered this time. I started getting serious about losing weight when I was 24. And in the next about year, I lost 124 pounds. So I was 209.
Holy crap.
I was 209 pounds, and that felt really good, right? Like, I was like really proud of myself, and then things were going well. And then I had, talking about life, right, getting in the way of this and that. I had like kind of a crazy period, some job like instability, right? I worked in at a data center, and then I left that job, and that was just, it really, like, a lot of things shook this up, and I gained back 80 pounds in about the next 8 or 9 months, really quick. For better or worse, my body reacts quickly. So like my losses happen quick, but I also put on quick, right? Like, it just tends to be the pattern for me. So I put on about 80 pounds in a little over 6 months, like almost 8 months, I think. Then I decided that enough's enough, right? The biggest thing that got me there was like, I could no longer say like, oh, I've lost over 100 pounds, right? Like, that was a big sense of pride. And then once the scale went back up, I couldn't say that anymore, right? No, math doesn't work out. So, I mean, not just that. Obviously, there are a lot of reasons I needed to kind of recommit, but that was like the big one that hit me. And I lost 111 pounds in a year and a half.
Damn.
So I got down to 178, which was my lowest ever. And then somewhere in that second part of weight loss, when I got at 200 pounds, what I wanted to reward myself with was jiu-jitsu. So I had lost most of that weight, right? All but the last 21 pounds or 22 pounds before I ever stepped on the mat. But that definitely accelerated that last little bit. It got me down to 178. I started that in September of 2017, just to kind of button the timeline up, I guess. And yeah, I've been training ever since. You had mentioned something about you'll go more often if you'll risk like family life, like making the wife unhappy or whatever. So like, I definitely, for the first probably year, I overdid it, right? Because I was all in, like, obsessive. So that the positive in that is that I did make some good progress, right? Because I was training a lot constantly for the first year or so. I still train a lot, as you heard in my explanation earlier, right, of how often I like to get in there, but it's not as obsessive or controlling in my life as it was then. And yeah, I'm purple belt now. I got that last year, the middle of last year. And I got down to 178. I'm now, just to be clear, today I'm 199 pounds, but I kind of ate like an asshole the last couple of days. I tend to float 194, 195. That's where I like to like chill, right? That's like good weight for me. And then when I compete, depending on how close it is and stuff like that, I'll cut down maybe 185 or hang out 195, fit in whatever class that is. So that's the quick version, I think. Is that good?
Yeah, no, that was great.
Bullet pointed enough. Yeah.
It sounds like you like have like something on the side and you're like, and then I was there, and then
when you lost a lot of weight and you've done these podcasts and stuff like that, you get pretty good. It almost feels rehearsed. So like, I've told the story so many times that I know kind of what's important and what not to. Like you said, I'm not going to waste my time on the day-to-day stuff unless we want to dig into something, but I'll let you guys decide that.
Was it all diet and exercise on the losing of the weight? And was it like stress and work that put it back on, or just delicious food?
Well, yes, right. So, but I mean, that just about hits the nail on the head, because it was, I mean, just diet and exercise, especially at 333 pounds, or even anywhere around that 300 mark. Like, exercise is limited, right? Like, exercise meant walking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, just movement, activity, and trying to keep progressing that. So, like, if you can walk, I can walk 1 mile now without feeling like I'm going to die. Maybe I'll push it to 2, then 2 to 3, 4, 5. But then diet is the biggest driver, right, for weight loss. So like, even with the times I was inactive, which I had gone through periods of that and still dieting, I could push the weight down. My approach has changed significantly from the time I started to where I am now. But for the better, right? Like, made a lot of mistakes, but also had a really good foundation, because from that initial attempt, for me, it was all about like whole foods, right? Like, just don't eat processed food, essentially, like no sugars, no grains. So it's like, potatoes, meat, broccoli, like things that I really enjoy eating anyway, right? it's probably harder for someone who loves bread and pasta. Whereas like me, I'd always would have gotten steak, right? It's just kind of like, for me, it was cleaning up some of these other choices, like not getting dessert after I had the steak dinner, right? Like that. So that was a little easier to manage. So yeah, I was cleaning it up. And then as I progressed, I got a little more calculated and dialed in. And now I go through waves of specificity, if I said that correctly. I go through waves of how controlled I want to be, and how controlled I'm not. But like diet has been the constant the whole time, no matter what the activity was, whether it was walking, lifting weights, or doing jiu-jitsu, right? Diet was always the driver that kind of pushed everything, for better or worse.
It's funny you mentioned, how you kind of just you brush off walking as exercise, and a lot of people don't realize, we like step counting, like 10,000 steps a day is about 5,000 miles, 5 miles, right? And if you take 10,000 steps a day and you just like cut something out of your diet, like that's a huge step already, right? That's more activity than a lot of people get. That's more activity than I get right now because, with the newborn and, we live in the Pacific Northwest where it's freaking, yesterday was a monsoon outside, you know what I mean? And, 2 kids under 2. So when I can't get my steps in, it's like I could feel the difference even the next day of, just feeling better. Not only that, it, helps your metabolism, bloat and stuff like that, and walking around. And we live in a hilly area, but a lot of people underestimate how just going for a 10-15 minute walk can help out. You know what I mean? It's just crazy to me. And when I was a CrossFit coach, one thing that really stuck out to me the most wasn't the moments of people showing up to the gym after losing a bunch of weight, or, you know what I mean? The gradual progression. To me, the biggest reward was when people came in and they're like, "Hey, I walked up my stairs today and didn't get out of breath." I'm like, that's amazing. Like, "Hey man, I carried all the groceries into the house today in one trip." I'm like, yes, you know what I mean? I put my shoes on today and it wasn't hard. Like those things that we as people take advantage of and don't realize like how big of an impact it is on someone else's life until you start hearing about that small victory that people have, like walking a mile and not getting tired. Like you have to look at these micro victories, because then they turn into macro. You know what I mean? Like you gotta celebrate the little things too, right, John? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like John after having his absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I didn't do any exercise for like 2.5, 3 months right after that shoulder surgery, and then I was just like had to go walk really far at work, and I was like, holy shit, man, I almost got like cramps in my calves. I was like, that was rough. I was like, yeah. Like, you don't do anything for a long time, I could imagine. Like,
it's true. Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned in your story too that you when you first started jiu-jitsu, man, how true is that? Everyone, I feel, when they first start jiu-jitsu, they start seeing a little bit of progression, or they fall in love with it to the point to where they overdo it. You know what I mean? Like we did the same thing until we got our blue belts. It was 4 or 5 times a week. You know what I mean?
Same.
Like,
that's so funny. Because when I said the first year, but like I got my blue belt in a little over a year, right? And then that was that first year, and then it was just like balls to the wall the whole time.
Yeah.
And then once I got my blue belt, I slowly have been calibrating.
Yeah, and that's how we are. Like John's he's completely dead set on like, yeah, I'm gonna be a blue belt forever.
Look, I'm in no rush. I'm fine. Like I'm good.
Be.
Like I'll take my time.
Yeah,
it's just gonna. I'm just gonna slowly go. 2
to
3 times a week, and that'll be it.
It's like everyone grabs that. They get that obsession with jiu-jitsu when they first start, man, and it's completely normal. If you guys are out there listening, you're like, man, I just want to go, and it's like, well, at some point, the problem with that, at some point you are going to get burnt out, whether it's after you get your blue belt or you win your tournament or whatever it is. Like you still have to have that healthy relationship with jiu-jitsu. Otherwise, it's just gonna be detrimental to yourself. You know what I mean, right, Ben?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny because there's so much overlap, and like maybe it's just me having those two personal experiences, right, with jiu-jitsu and weight loss, but there's so much overlap, right? Because like it's like what you were just saying. It's looking at sorry, it's I'm so sorry. Never mind. But there's just a lot of overlap. There's noise, and my kids are still home, so I was just checking. Sorry if any of it came through, and sorry for slowing things down. But
no, you're good. You're good, man.
No, but there's just a lot of overlap, right? So it's all about easing yourself into these things, right? And kind of finding the approach, because you can overdo it. You can burn it out. It's just crazy. Cause like, and I'll probably do this a handful, like dozens of times as we talk, but I'll relate one to the other, because it's all about making progress. It's just, what's the thing, right, that you're trying to make progress in.
Yeah, it's true. I saw something on Instagram. I do a lot of Instagramming right now because we're trying to grow our social media accounts and, get more people listening to the show. But one thing that stuck out to me was this post. I forgot who it was, but it was talking about progress, right? It's like, it was talking about how people look at progress and that's what they, they're happy with progress, but you could be making progress in the wrong direction, right? You want progress in the right direction. You know what I mean? Like, and with jiu-jitsu, you could be making progress in the right direction of like learning all these techniques or competing all the time, right? But if you're making progress in the wrong way because you're not practicing these fundamental movements, or you're not showing up to class, or you're going to nothing but open mats, like that could be progression in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like those, you have to take those into considerations also. Or losing weight, like you just said, losing weight the wrong way too. You can make progression in weight loss and do it completely wrong, and then eat a steak and gain 10 pounds afterwards because your body's like so calorie deficient. You're like, holy crap, man.
People ask me a lot of times, just again, because of the nature of what I'm doing on social media, it's like, what's the fastest way to lose weight? And I'll just be like, don't eat. And I mean, because like realistically, right, is that if you want a like super extreme, if you want the fastest approach, right, it's just, okay, we'll just stop eating. And then I follow that up, right, because it's like, well, that sounds ridiculous, right? Because it's like, you can't just never eat. So you have to, ease yourself into that thing, because typically you may benefit, good or bad, for a short time doing an extreme approach, but something's going to have to give, right? Even if it's not your body or physically. Like we talked about marriage, when you go all out on jiu-jitsu, it's like your relationships suffer, right? Maybe your body physically suffers. Like there's something's going to give at some point, unless you can find a sweet spot. And for some people, maybe they can go that much, right? Depending on who the listener is. Maybe they're not dads, right? Like they're not like us. Maybe they got a little more capacity to give it. But I think broadly, this applies to pretty much anyone listening, right? It's like don't overdo it with any of this stuff.
Yeah. And also don't fall into like the social media trap of seeing all these high level competitors on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and they're training like champs and, they're winning medals and stuff like that. Because honestly, that's not general population of jiu-jitsu. No. You know what I mean? Like you can't look at that and be like, John's like, man, this 42-year-old, like Rafael Lovato Jr., right? He's the same age as John. John's not going to compete the way he does, or isn't going to be doing all stuff that he does, right? You have to stay within your lane. I have blinders on when I look at Instagram. I'm like, man, that technique looks great. Not going to work for me next.
That's funny.
So
I've got a folder full of things saved that I'll probably never attempt. Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's cool, save it, and then I go to like actually try something. It's like, how are they putting it? That's beyond me a lot of times.
Yeah, I just talked about this in a post, and I was talking about how we don't really consume outside instruction anymore in our jiu-jitsu journey right now, because I really just try to focus on what's being taught in class. Because we were heavy into, like Roy Dean, BJJ Fanatics, Gracie Online, like all these like Instagram, YouTube, like anywhere we could get information on jiu-jitsu, going back to when you first start, especially if you're trying to get your blue belt. When you just absorb all this information, it was hard, because I was like, man, yeah, I know how to do some of these things, but I'm forgetting what we're doing in class, or I can't execute what's going on in class the next day or whatever. So we kind of put a back burner on looking at stuff, huh?
Yeah, but I think when you're new to the journey, you kind of need to do that, because you don't have the opportunity in class to really see the technique over and over and over again. So it helps to go look at those and be like, all right, you can slow it up, you can rewind it, because you remember in class we used to just count the steps, and I knew if I hit a certain number of steps, then I was never going to get it. So I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 16 steps to that move, never going to get it.
Right. Well, that's important, right? If you're talking about being the new person, and it's like watching it over and over again, it's make sure it's like a basic armbar setup from guard, right? Don't watch rubber guard tutorials when you've been going for 2 months.
Right.
Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that is an important piece of it.
I think everyone, when they first start, they see 10th Planet or Eddie Bravo, and they're like, I want to do rubber guard. And I was like, don't freaking worry about rubber guard. You don't even know what side control is. You don't know how to escape when someone's in your guard. Like, yeah, you don't. So, what was white belt band like though? Like, what was it? What was your first couple months like? Besides the obsession, like, tell us what it was like when you made that conscious decision of I'm gonna start in your first class. You know what I mean? Like, what was an eye opener or whatever?
Well, I think in a word, brutal, right? It was like when you start, everybody kind of like, you don't realize how intense it is. Like even, I mean, it's not like I didn't realize it was an intense thing, right? But I was like, I can do this. Right? I've been working out for a while, lost a bunch of weight, feeling good. And you go in there and you can't even like barely make it through warm up. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So yeah, that part it kind of showed me how fitness, one, I guess, lesson is like, there's definitely different kinds of fitness, right? Or there's levels to everything. So like was not in jiu-jitsu shape. Something positive I learned about myself because I had been, like I said, I was heavy my whole life, right? I never did anything active, which I've actually, the more I've thought about it, being so obsessive with jiu-jitsu, even to this day, now that I manage it better, I'm pretty sure it comes from a place of like having never been that athlete, like person, right? Like I don't have a story about playing football in high school where we went to whatever championship, right? Like I had no athletic career. I mean, that's a real loose term, right? Athletic career for me. So I think I'm like almost trying to compensate now, like make up for lost time. So that was one thing is like, it was the first time I was ever moving my body. So I was really learning about what my limitations were. But then, like I was saying, a good thing or a positive thing I learned is that I'm surprisingly flexible. And everyone at gym always asks, like, what do you do? Right? Oh, you stretch, like, you do yoga? So I was like, I don't know. I didn't do anything for this, right? It's kind of like I stretch now, like I lean into it and I try to keep it, right? Or like not let it deteriorate, maybe push it a little further. But I didn't do anything to get here. So maybe that's not the most helpful thing, but that did show me something about my body that I never would have realized. I don't think if I didn't start jiu-jitsu, because CrossFit, that's a very limited level, right, of flexibility. I probably wouldn't have realized how flexible I was doing anything else. And I also went in there, I think everyone goes in with more expectation of themselves. I was like, okay, like a couple weeks and I'll probably start feeling pretty good about this, right? It's like, no, you're just not good for a long time, right? And I don't know if I can speak like with hyperbole like that, right? Like, I don't know if it's okay to be so extreme because like you will get better, right? Obviously, but I think most people's timeline is kind of off on that,
Skewed.
right? Mine was for sure. Yeah. Mine was not accurate. And because I had a buddy of mine who's also in this weight loss space, but he started jiu-jitsu and he asked me like for advice. And I remember telling him, and I'm not proud of the terms, but he kind of got it. And the further he goes in jiu-jitsu, now we still talk about it like it's true, right? But I was like, you'll never like be good, but you'll definitely start sucking less, right? Like that was kind of it's like,
it's a good way to look at it.
I still don't feel like I'm good at it, right? Like I can go back objectively and you can look at medals or things like that or like your performance in the gym, and if I really look at it and say, okay, well obviously like I'm not terrible, but I still don't feel good, but I definitely feel like I suck less, right? So like the further I go, the more I believe that to be true, even though it might be a semi-toxic way of saying it, right? But like, so yeah, I think it was mainly for me, it was just expectation. I thought to sum it up nicely, I didn't think it was going to be this hard, but I also think that part of how hard it is what makes me like it so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I first started, I tell this story all the time, but I was in the best shape of my life, and it meant absolutely nothing when I first started jiu-jitsu, and we were getting tapped by guys that had 4 or 5 months. I think there was a guy that had one stripe on his white belt, and he would just kick everyone's butt.
Yeah, just destroyed us all.
Man,
gotta get that straight.
It's true. You don't realize like how much of training makes a difference, even if it's just a little bit, and like how long it takes to actually get there. People get so obsessed with these milestones that they want to hit, whether it's winning a tournament or getting a belt or getting a stripe, and they forget that just because your buddy got a stripe doesn't mean that you're going to get a stripe. you could have started at the same time, but your journeys can take completely different paths. My journey isn't the same as John's journey. I'm 10 years younger than John, right? I have a lot less injuries than John. John shouldn't expect to keep up with me or vice versa, because our journeys are just different, man. Like, it takes a long time to suck less at jiu-jitsu,
Right.
and you just got to be okay with that. You can't sit there and expect the world,
And like I said, I think it's always like, what are you comparing yourself to? I don't
Yeah.
really compare myself to anyone in the classes anymore. If anything, I'd be like comparing myself to your average Joe that's had no training, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, hey, well, I know if that guy's had none and what I've had, I'm good to go. That's where I always do my measurements. Not really against the class anymore. you know?
Roy Dean put out in our interview with him a good point of view. He doesn't even look at people really against other people in the class. He looks at them against themselves, right? He's like, one big thing that stuck out to me during the interview, he's like, well, that guy kicked that guy's ass when he first walked into the gym, right? Would you kick your own ass when you first walked into the gym? Like, absolutely, right? So that you have to keep that in mind. Like, I would beat the shit out of 19-year-old Travis if he were to say something to me right now. You have to keep that in mind, right? Like, how do you look at your journey? Do you look in a similar way, Ben?
Yeah. So big thing for me was like reframing, like what I thought, because at first I was like, essentially the jiu-jitsu metric for success is I go to class and like how many times did I tap and how many times did I get the submission, right? So like that was my black and white way of looking at it initially. And like I said, then I was like, this isn't going to go as smoothly, right, as I thought it was gonna. So we really had to start reframing it. So now, like, then it became, okay, when I rolled with this person, I tapped 3 times last time. I'm doing it less than that this time, right? 0 ideally, like maybe I just survived the whole round, right? It would be a good metric or like way to find some progress there. But maybe it's twice, and twice is still less than 3 times, right? So it was really just shifting and reframing the way that I looked at like what was a win, right? We talked a little bit about like looking for wins in weird places earlier when we were talking about like weight loss and stuff. So you do it in jiu-jitsu too, right? Survival is a win in a lot of cases, right? Especially early, going back to who we're trying to talk to, right? So.
Yeah, I remember the first time I didn't get tapped in a roll with our buddy Cody. I literally got up and like fist pumped the sky. I was like, I didn't get tapped. And it could have been because he wasn't trying very hard or whatever. But in my mind, that was a victory. You know what I mean?
Counts.
So
yes.
Yeah, it's still 100% still counts. So, but you talk about your weight loss and how people come to you for guidance and whatnot. Now you also do coaching for people for macronutrients and personal coaching and stuff. Like, how did you get into that?
So that kind of, I don't want to say happened by accident, number one, because it sounds really cliche, and it was, but it was never like part of the plan, right? Because it really just started out as like, I got to lose weight, and then I did it, and then once I did it, I kept it off, right? And then in your life, if you lose a significant amount of weight, people don't not notice, right? So they start asking you about it. So then my wife, actually, I helped her lose a lot of weight, which I don't necessarily count as coaching experience, right? Because it was a very different dynamic than I have with my clients. But then I had a buddy who wanted to kind of do the same thing. And we worked at that data center together, like I was talking about. So I helped him, and like, I guess selfishly, the feeling that I got from doing it felt good, right? It feels good to help people. It's like, it's no different from, you're donating to charities, things like that. It's just a little more direct and less financial, right? You know what I'm saying? But like, still felt really good to help him do that. And he was, he's so stoked that then I tried to open it up, and I was like, is anybody else interested in? And all of a sudden you do a couple for free, right? Just to try to get some experience and get people results. And then and that was 3 years, a while ago. And it's just been slowly progressing ever since. And now that's like my main gig now. So like, I'm pretty stoked because it's a nice marriage, right? Of things that I'm passionate about. Cause like the diet, the food and stuff's all easy, right? But like, I enjoyed the lifestyle benefit, or the life that I kind of had an opportunity for, right? Talking about losing weight. Like, we were naming all these examples. Can't tie your shoes, can't walk up the stairs, can't walk a mile. You're really limited in like your full enjoyment of life, right? Because then all of a sudden, like, I have this opportunity to do these things, right? And like, oh, Disney World's the most magical place on earth, but it's a lot of damn walking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so like you've automatically been shut off from certain things. So like that was the big thing for me, was like, I want to help people get to a place where, like, whether it be jiu-jitsu or if they want to go to Disney World, like I said, or if they just want to like not feel out of breath when they tie their shoes, right? It's like what they want to pursue. I just want to help people get there. So that's kind of what I've built it around, that passion. But yeah, Progressed is just like helping friends to, everyone that I help, it seems to work, right? So maybe I kind of know. So then I would try to help more people. At this point, I've been doing like supplemental, right? Like education stuff, trying to stay up on it. To like try to remain subject matter expert, so to speak. It's important to say like not a nutritionist, right? Because I'm not trying to help you like naturally increase testosterone levels or any of these things. It's just purely you want to lose weight and I can help you do it. And what I believe is that the most flexible and sustainable way possible, which are not sexy words. That's kind of hard to sell, right? But it's what lasts. That's why I still haven't gained more weight, right? Stuff like that.
So do you have any like certificates or done any courses or whatnot to help? You talked about you do some educational stuff. Have you done anything like certificate wise or anything like that to get your knowledge?
Not as related to diet. I've just done like courses, so to speak, like informational, educational things. I was ACE personal trainer certified, which it's funny because now what I do, I talked about at the beginning, diet's like the big driver, right? And now just based on the nature of what I'm doing with coaching, fitness is like a secondary piece. I only help people who want to do that, but they don't necessarily need to. And like we talked about, it looks different for everyone. So I let that expire. Like I didn't renew or keep up with my continuing credits to stay with that. But I still have that knowledge base, right? So that's the only thing in terms of certifications I've had was a personal trainer certification. And even that isn't the most directly helpful thing, right? Because it's like I said, diet is the biggest factor. And then the thing that a lot of people don't necessarily think about unless you've been real heavy are like habits and lifestyle things, like little triggers. Like you get so used to dessert after dinner. And now all of a sudden that's a behavior that you've done for 15 years. That's like, now how am I going to stop this or make an adjustment to where it's less detrimental, right? And talking about like healthier options. I don't like the term healthy per se, because it kind of gets like marketed in a way, right? Like healthy relative to what, you know what I'm saying? But but you can make better and worse choices, right? So I'm just all about trying to move people towards that better choice.
Well, I was going to say better choices, man. If you saw the choice selection at our work, it's amazing, isn't it? Like if you want some food.
It's so bad.
Like funny story, Travis hasn't been at work for a while, but they just redid all the cafeteria rooms. So they're open like 24/7 so you can get nutritious food now. What that nutritious food is they put in all these warming stations in those big ass sandwiches you get out of a vending machine.
Oh my God.
I don't know what they are. They look like grilled chicken patties or something. Yeah. They're sitting in all these things hot. So you could just go, I was like, man, I wish they could get some healthy choices in there somewhere.
Yeah, right. And then, like you said, it's like better or worse choices. It's like I could go to the vending machine it's like I could go to the vending machine, get a bag of chips or some candy or something like that. Or is it really better for me to go get that like super highly processed chicken breast sandwich
that's like 80% chicken, 20%. Who knows, you know?
I don't even know what it is. No, I read one of Jocko's books, that discipline book, and one of the things I took out of that is like, look, if there's no option, if there's no substitute, just don't eat.
Oh,
and like that's just what I'm doing now when I'm there. I'm like, there's nothing, so I'll just wait. You're not going to starve to death for 8 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. That's a hard thing too, right? Is because hunger is like a hard thing for people to fight. You know what I mean? Like people getting hangry
or you're just bored.
You're bored. That's probably my biggest one. Is I'll be like, oh man, I'm watching TV. I'm gonna go grab a heavenly hunk and like eat this heavenly hunk, or eat a bowl of popcorn or something like that, right? And like. Yeah, it's definitely, it's easy to say like I'm just not going to eat until you're overweight already and you're trying to do the right thing, and then you're like, oh, I have to eat something, and you start consciously like telling yourself it's okay, I can eat this, it's only one time, it's whatever, you know what I mean? And then you
it's
hit
just today for the 4th day in a row. So yeah.
So do you think because your weight loss journey and how much you've lost and been successful, do you think people come to you because you've been there, you know what it's like, and they want someone that can be relatable, because it's hard to be, 200-300 pounds overweight, and then you see a guy rocking 6-pack abs that's never been fat in his life trying to tell you what it's like to be fat. You know what I mean? Like, it's I shouldn't say fat. That's kind of like, but you know what I mean? Like,
I use
it's hard.
It's like, it's funny. That's fat. Just not to go off too much on the side thing, but like the fat word, it's like, I use it because it's like, I don't know. I get, maybe I'm not sensitive enough, or maybe people are too sensitive, or whatever the reason. It's like, but I like fat because I never mean it in a derogatory sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like fat, and mostly fat for me. Most of my uses of it now are like mental. So like when I said I ate like an asshole this weekend, I'd be like, oh, I was fat this weekend. That's probably how if I didn't say ate like an asshole, that's what I would have said. Like, that's just how I kind of use it. So I guess for me, don't feel bad, but I don't know how the ratings, reviews, comment sections will feel, but we'll see, right? It remains to be seen. But yeah, I know from feedback that I've gotten from clients that a big appeal of it is that I have gone through the same thing, right? A lot of people, and this is an oddly common theme for me, but they work with the always had 6-pack coach like you're describing, right? And they put in maybe for a whole month or like 6 weeks or something with that person, and there is just a disconnect for whatever reason, right? But it is a lot of it, I think, has to do with just lack of shared experience, right? Which isn't a problem. It's like, the way I compare it is, well, I've had women come to me, but then we decide not to, right? Because it just doesn't, they would probably do better working with a woman, right? And that's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, if I have 50 pounds to lose, almost anyone could coach me for the most part, right? Depending on what your deep-seated issues are, but like almost anyone could work with you at that point, right? The always had 6-pack guy can get 50 pounds off you relatively easy. But when you're talking 100, 150 pounds, that type of thing, that's where it's deeper than just, oh, I eat a little too much. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, every time I get sad or stressed, I eat. Or every time there's like a celebration, I eat. Oh, I ate a whole pizza for dinner, and that now it seems normal to me, right? Like, I remember going to parties where they'd have pizza for everyone, and I was sitting there, do the math, right? You look at how many boxes, there's 8 slices per pizza, right? And you look like all the numbers start coming past your face, right? It's like, so how much could I get away with eating without it looking like I ate too much pizza?
Oh,
or whatever,
wow.
right? So like, there's little, like, and that's, I mean, not little, right? That's a pretty big, significant like issue that you need to work on. But it's just these little nuances of living in that space that I think a lot of people, unless you've done it, right, you don't really understand. You can sympathize or empathize with it, right, but you can't get it without having done it. And then when I talk to some of my peers, I also get the impression that some of the ones who haven't been as overweight don't lack that connectivity piece, right? But there's going to be a different coach that works for everyone. But yeah, I find that the more weight someone has to lose, the more appeal or at least benefit there seems to be when they come to me. So
yeah, I think that's why people like our podcast. Not to pat ourselves on the back, you know what I'm saying?
Please,
but I think this is why people like our podcast so much too, is because we're 2 blue belts that are dads that have day-to-day responsibilities, real jobs. You know what I mean? Like, we would love to have this be our full-time job and whatnot and pay the bills. But I mean, realistically, it's not going to happen anytime soon, you know? And so I think that's why people do like this podcast so much, is because we do have a relatable story. We are just average people. You know, we're not 4th, 5th degree black belts that have been doing this for 30 years. And like we talked about before recording, like, you know, we're so disconnected from the daily struggles or what it is like to be there. Like, yeah, they have a lot of knowledge because they've been doing it so long, but sometimes it's nice to hear from your peers. You know what I mean? Like someone that's been there, someone that was just there. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure someone would love to hear John's point of view as a 44-year-old man with injuries and whatnot, how he maintains his jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you like to hear from people that look and sound similar to you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, for sure.
There's
another overlap, right? Because I said I'm going to bring it up several times, but there's here's another overlap. It's like, you know, we're trying to talk to like people who are fresher, right? And you bring on people like me, right? Definitely more normal, not high level competitor, right? Not a black belt. But I think, like you were saying, the black belts tend to be so far removed from being a white belt that you kind of forget the little things. And that's similar within weight loss. It's like one thing I do like about coaching is that it's helped me not become too far removed from those problems that I went through, because they're still, even though they're not directly mine, they're still on my mind, or like I'm in experiencing them or interacting with these types of issues like on a daily basis. Right. So,
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's definitely, you want to try to avoid the disconnect because the relatability helps for sure. So good job. Well done. Pat on the back. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes. I appreciate that. So, but you mentioned that, your schedule with your kids and everything like that. Do you have kids in jiu-jitsu? Like what sports do they play?
Well, they've all tried it. So my son, he is 11. He tried it, didn't love it. And so he goes on the fence about wanting to like join and quit and join and quit. So like working on that one, that's a work in progress. My middle daughter, she is our all around athlete. And she does it twice a week. Cause that's all she can really fit in, cause she's our busy one. So she does travel soccer, parks and rec soccer, and she does jiu-jitsu. So like she's on technically 3 soccer teams and then jiu-jitsu. So she's very busy. She is our biggest time suck in the most loving way possible. And then our youngest, she plays rec soccer and she does acrobatics. She's tried jiu-jitsu, and it's encouraging for me because a lot of the acrobatic stuff that they do seems to translate over pretty well. Like she just seems to be, of all my kids, the one who probably did decent, like the best with stepping out, right? Most naturally ready. But I don't know if her interest level's there. I think she wants to keep doing acro. And my son plays flag or tackle football depending on the season. So we got football, 1 football team, 3 to 4 soccer teams. Then we got jiu-jitsu, we got acrobatics. But I only have one who does it actively. She always goes twice a week, and I actually help teach that class, which has also been, I've enjoyed, like I wasn't excited, I'm not going to lie, work with kids, right, do the teaching. It's like, I love my kids, but I wouldn't say I'm a kid person, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, agree. So, I hate other people's kids.
Yeah. No, so there was like a cringy, like, oh, I guess I'll help because like she's in the class, and that's like, this is what I should do, and this is my duty. Like I want to show up and teach jiu-jitsu. Like I tried to tell myself all the right things, and I go. But I will say this: I kind of get excited because obviously the kids never do anything super complex. It's a lot of fundamental things, but it has to be explained in such a simplified way that I've actually found myself learning things better by teaching, which I know is like that's, everybody says you learn by teaching. And now I guess I've experienced it because I agree. But I think that's been a nice benefit as well, not to get too far away from your original question. But yeah, teaching the kids, because I have to explain everything very simply, even basic things, and make it even simpler, which helps my brain process it. So, but yeah, very busy, lots of sports, mostly with balls. There's your segue. No.
Yeah, I'm about to say. Well, luckily, coming up is Father's Day, right, John?
It is.
And what is a great gift that we can get for Father's Day?
I would say the whole Manscaped package. Gentlemen, Father's Day is just around the corner, and our friends at Manscaped are here to ensure all the father figures out there are looking like good daddy material this June. Manscaped Performance Package 4.0, which includes their signature Lawnmower 4.0, is the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair.
Like your little salt and pepper, bro.
They're talking about me right there. Let's see. It's the perfect bundle to tackle any and all old man hair from head to toe. This right here is a no dad joke. Treat him and yourself and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. With this exclusive offer, you get 20% off plus free shipping with the code
ETP20, baby,
at manscaped.com. Trust me, his dad Bob will thank you.
So Manscaped is designed with fathers in mind. The Performance Package 4.0 is here in just in time for your pop's special day. Inside the package, you'll find a Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, weed whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, crop preserver ball deodorant, my favorite, the crop revive toner, performance boxer briefs, and the traveling bag to hold all his goodies. I'm not gonna lie, they just released the Boxer 2.0s, and I really want to buy a pair to see what they're like. But the first set of Boxers are fantastic. I absolutely love them. If you guys haven't bought a pair yet, they are worth the money. And like I always talk about, that crop preserver ball deodorant is the business.
I like that travel bag.
The travel bag.
I'm not gonna lie, because like I'm sure every guy on the planet has all their stuff in the bathroom. Everywhere. My wife's like, "Can you like put it in that drawer? Put it in this drawer?" Now I'll just keep everything in that bag.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I just put everything in the bag this morning. Actually, I trimmed my facial hair with my
ball trimmer.
My ball
Good
trimmer.
Job.
Yeah. It's because I got a butt chin, so it's basically the same thing.
It's made for the curves.
Yeah. What else are some great points about the package there, John?
Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to the advanced skin-safe technology. Man, I would not want an accident anywhere around that area. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof, also has a 400K LED spotlight for a more precise shave.
All right, guys, just remember, get 20% off and free shipping with code ETP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using code ETP20. Shake what your mama gave you. Nah, shake what your daddy gave you with manscaped.com. Oh, man, we're selling out so bad. So, hey, Ben, have you ever tried any Manscaped products?
Well, what's funny is I was going to ask if I was allowed to add on to the ad read.
Yeah,
but I got for
Christmas
the year before last, I got what I'm pretty sure is exactly the package that you were just describing for Father's Day. The nose hair trimmer, got the lawnmower, underwear, and the deodorizer and the preserver.
Yeah.
I love the deodorizer and the preserver, and I still use the only thing I should probably work on is using the nose hair one a little more.
Yeah,
it's probably the camera's at an upward angle for today. but no, I actually I really like those things. I really like all the products that I got and that I used, and I've actually gotten more. And I don't get a code or anything, so this is non-biased. But ETP20, from what I hear, will save you 20%.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot, Ben. So what was it like when you first started competing in jiu-jitsu? Like, did you compete as a white belt, or was it just like you're like, I got my blue, now I want to compete, and now I'm a purple, I want to compete? Like, did you have competition in your mind the whole time?
Yeah, I did, and this goes back to which now I can look back at it and I can tell you it was like making up for lost time, right? Because it was like I never did anything competitive, physical, nothing. So, and then back to the obsessive part. So I signed up September 2017 was when I signed up. And then in that December, I did a tournament. It had a novice division, so like 9 months and under, which helped, right? It wasn't just like broad white belt lumping. So like that definitely helped me. But even then I did it. So that's 3 months of training, probably less based on how the weeks work out, right? Like 2.5 months. And I did get third in a 4-man bracket, which I was very proud of. I still am. I don't want to diminish it, right? Like I was proud of it then. But looking back on it, was probably sooner than I would recommend to most people, right? Learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat them, right? That's what I'm trying to. So like and it was a submission only tournament, which also made it brutal because it was submission only, but no time. Wow. I guess I never realized what I was really getting into there. So that was in no gi. And then I also did the gi. Every time I compete, I do both. I'm not a one. I don't do one or the other. But, and then in gi, I just absolutely got wrecked. That's not worth sharing, right? That was the winner learn. And I did a lot of learning, right, on that day and in that division. And then I basically, again, for that first year, it was pretty frequent. I think I did one quarterly, I guess was probably how it worked out. On average, because I think there were like 2 that were within a month, right, and then a longer break. But yeah, I competed I think 5 times at white belt. Same at blue belt, which I was there longer, so I actually competed less frequently. And most of them. So when I got promoted, every time I've gotten promoted, I just recently did this with my purple belt. It's like every time I get promoted, I get super in my own head because it's like, oh. Well, upper, that's the best white belt version I was ever going to be. And now all of a sudden I'm the worst blue belt version I'm ever going to be. Right. So I was like,
that's a good way to look at it.
And so I was like, well, I'm not going to compete. Right. Like I need to be a better blue belt before I compete. So I waited a while before I actually started. And another, 4 or 5. My most recent one was in 2020. Well, yeah, it was 2021. It was last year. And I got my first gold medal. It was in a Naga tournament, which is cool. So I was really pleased and happy with that. And then after that tournament, I got promoted, and I kind of went through something similar where I was like, oh, now I'm the worst purple belt I'm ever going to be. I gotta get better. Especially because in most organizations that I was looking at, purple belt for no-gi gets lumped into advanced. So it's brown, black, purple, right? So like I didn't love that. I didn't love the thought of that.
Right.
But I actually found I have a tournament, a grappling industries tournament in July where they have no-gi sectioned out as purple only and then a brown black no-gi. So I signed up for that, which will make I'll actually start competing at purple belt quicker than I competed at blue belt. And I hope to get more than 5 this time, especially because I'll be here for a while. Right. But like, I love competing. Like, even if I lose, I don't love losing, but I enjoy competing. So even if I lose, I can handle it. Right. Like, I'm okay with it. Again, just going back to scratching this weird itch that I never got to scratch with Pee-wee football or T-ball or baseball or anything like that.
It's so interesting, though, that you mentioned like you don't want to compete at a certain level when you first get promoted, because I feel like you're never going to have that moment of feeling like, okay, I'm ready. Right? Like,
agreed.
So I feel like, and this isn't criticizing you, but I'm sure there's people out there that they're like, well, I just started. I don't want to compete yet until I at least have a stripe on my belt. And then they get the stripe on their belt and they're like, well, actually, you know what? I should probably wait a little bit because, they put these barriers in front of themselves, and kind of segueing into weight loss, right? You put these barriers in front of yourself on why you can't do something, and then you're just holding yourself back. So if you are out there, Ben luckily was able to convince them, or not convince, but put that goal in and still do it. But if you're out there and you feel like you're always just not making an excuse, but holding yourself back, and you don't realize it, like, why not compete when you first start? You know what I mean? We've met some people where they were like, literally, I think Katie Egan competed 2 months into her jiu-jitsu journey and has never stopped. You know what I mean? She's like, I got my butt kicked, but, and I feel like, I've never competed, but that's just because competing isn't my thing. Like, I don't, competitiveness is not in my blood anymore. Maybe in my 20s, but now it's like, I'm okay. I might do one here or there, but I'm okay with not competing, right? Some people, they have this mindset of like, I want to compete, but then when it goes to pulling the trigger, they're like, wait, but maybe, they get that self-doubt, that imposter syndrome or something like that. Do you ever get anything feeling like that there, John?
Nope. I don't think, I just, like I said, I think every case is just individual if they're going to do it or not. I've tried it, and it was fine. And now I just think I don't really want to risk any injuries at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
401k to worry about.
So, I don't know. We'll see, maybe in the future.
Yeah. Well, I've had people, going back to like, ever since that My White Belt post, I've had a lot more jiu-jitsu people end up on my page. And I'll have people message me like they're a white belt, and they kind of ask about compete, like, should I compete in order to like progress? Essentially, I think the way it was framed was like they really wanted to get promoted, like get a stripe. So they're like, do you think competing will help? And my answer was like, not necessarily, right? Because it's like your promotion will come based on skill, and like you don't have to compete, right, to make that progress in skill, right? So I can definitely acknowledge that for me, the competition part is almost separate. Obviously, right, they're tremendously related to each other. But like competing is, like you said, right, it doesn't do anything for you. You used all that competitive energy up, right? And that's where I go back to like having never used it before. Maybe getting too mad about Monopoly, like when I was 20 or something, you know what I'm saying? But like never really competing in or for anything. So like I recognize where that comes from for me. And yeah, that's why I tried to catch myself sooner this time and actually sign up for a tournament closer, right, to promotion date. I did have, and you're talking about excuses. I had the excuse for these last few months of sports, right? Kids sports. I can't train the way I need to compete, yada, yada. Yeah. And like, and that was kind of the last straw, so to speak. Because when I caught myself doing that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and sign up for something. I did put it in the summer because that will be the slowest time, right? So I will be completely absent or free from excuses. So yeah, I think I do definitely agree with pretty much everything you said. And that goes back to where I was like, please learn from what I'm doing so you do not do the same dumb shit that I've done. Yeah.
So what does it look like for you leading up to a tournament?
Well, so I try to keep 3 to 4 times a week for jiu-jitsu training specifically. I lift 3 days a week. Also, I was working with a coach for a while. He's a jiu-jitsu specific strength and conditioning coach. His name's Joshua Settlage. My friend Mark Bell is probably a more popular name. And he worked in the super training gym with Mark Bell, but so he helped me with my most recent tournament where I got the gold medal. And he got me kind of lifting and doing more like strength stuff. I let jiu-jitsu take care of the conditioning. So 3 lifting days, 4 jiu-jitsu days. If you want to talk, I hate using big words like this because it's not as formal as it sounds. But if I think about like what a training camp is, I essentially take like the 6 weeks to really hone in. So I'm not going to, like the way that I ate this weekend, once I'm 6 weeks out from that tournament, I won't have weekends like that, right? Got to clean all that up to try to keep the weight trending. Workouts will be intense, and I kind of back off them for the last week. And the jiu-jitsu is the same way. Start flowing like the last week, kind of recover a little more, but keep it pretty intense for the first 4 to 5. I'm by no means an expert, so that's just the approach I found that worked well the last 2 times I competed. So I'm just going to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I'll just keep rolling with
right.
it. Keep rolling with it this time until I see a reason to change. But yeah, essentially, like I take 6 weeks is what I really consider like getting ready for, because that usually gives me enough time to get my weight wherever I need it to be. And that gives me time to like train at the intensity that I want, but also have enough time to recover. If that makes sense. It seems to be a sweet spot, but who knows? Maybe it'll change.
What does it look like before you step on the mat? Like, are you listening to music? Are you meditating? Are you giving high fives to random people? Like, what do you do?
So I enjoy it when the team's there, right? Because I've had tournaments or competitions where I just go like by myself, or there's only like 2 or 3 of us. I really enjoy when there's like the gym, right? Even people who aren't competing will show up sometimes, depending on how far it is, right? So I really like those. So I'll try to not distract myself, but keep myself positive, because I do tend to get in my head a little bit, right? If that wasn't obvious by the saying like, well, now I'm the worst purple belt I'm going to be, right? So I'm trying to avoid spiraling into one of those less productive conversations with myself. So I'll usually try to essentially distract myself. Music I find is nice, but it can kind of still gives me too much time to think, right? It's not engaging enough. So I'm typically talking to people. Fortunately, I also have my wife and my kids there most of the time. So I can use them as an element of distraction. And funny enough, watching other matches go on, as long as so this has only backfired one time, but watching other matches go on for the most part keeps me calm. I did see one thing where it was like, whoa, I'll never, you know what I'm saying? You're talking about comparing on social media. You're like, I'll never be able to do that. So I did see one time I was like, it got in my head a little bit because I was like, if he does that, how am I going to, so that doesn't matter, right? But for the most part, watching the match is a nice distraction because I just try to observe, see what they're doing. Oh, he should do that, right? He should bring his foot over, like little things. So I just try to keep it, maybe meditation, but I can't let my mind be too free, right? Because I try to keep the energy where I want it, right? Not too low, because then when I step out, I'm not ready to go, but definitely not too high, because that's when I start getting in my head, making the wrong kind of mistakes, right? Just kind of like pleasant, fun conversation with whoever I can kind of get it from, or watching a match. But music is kind of, music goes either way, kind of depends. But yeah, I'm relatively chill. For better or worse, take very few things serious, so I can easily find humor and bring myself into like calming myself down if I start getting too serious. But at the same time, I can't get in my head. And ultimately, the ultimate goal is to avoid doing that, whether I'm using music, conversation, watching matches, right? It's just an avoid the negative talk more so than any specific thing that I'm doing at the time.
So when you win, do you rip your gi open and you go, ah, like those juiced up steroid black belts?
I don't. My wife has said that my facial expression is largely the same whether I win or lose. I've assured her that the feeling inside is different. I probably feel similar to rip my gi off. And maybe that's just because shirtless confidence is it's a relatively new experience for me in life, right? Like I was t-shirt at the pool for a quarter century, right? Basically, because of 25 years before I would ever take my shirt off in front of people. So like, I probably won't be tearing my gi open anytime soon. But I actually seem like a lack of emotion, but I'm I get pretty hype. You'll notice it most, I think, once I've had times removed, like once I can get off the mat, and catch my breath, right? My heart rate comes like to normalish or normalizes. Then it's like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, yeah, that was dope. Like I feel good now. But then it would be inappropriate because, you're at dinner. I can't tear my shirt open. So yeah.
Yeah.
How about
you could.
How about coaching? Do you like when you're getting coached from the sideline where they're yelling out, move or do this or do that? Like, how do you like that?
I don't mind having one person coach me.
You don't like a crowd?
You
Like,
Ben. Yes. Especially if they're, I don't want to say conflicting because they never tell you opposite things, but if they're, there's at least 4 escapes, right, for everything more or less. So it's like they're giving you different instructions or trying to send you in a different direction than the other person. So I like having one because it's helpful. But then once you get too many voices going, I tend to tune everyone out and just kind of do my thing, which
I'm like, they can hear you too.
That's also, that is a thing, grab his arm and they're like, no. And they just pick
right? Like immediately.
Yeah. What do I do now? Text it to me. Put me in the earpiece.
You got to learn sign language. That'd be the move.
There you go. Or you can learn like baseball calls. They're like,
oh yeah.
If you can't see me, I'm making stupid gestures into the camera.
My buddy asked for feedback. He was like, "Hey, was it helpful when I was coaching?" And I was like, "Honestly, the most helpful thing to me was when you would say what time it was. Like, 1 minute left, 15 seconds. That is what helps."
I do love those.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I do love those because it tells you if you got to turn it on.
Yep.
Yeah. They're like 2.5 minutes left. Like, God damn, you could have waited a little bit longer.
They're like 15 seconds. Thank God.
No, that's funny. I don't know if I'll ever compete. We have some people in our gym that compete and they
love it.
They love it, man. Like, but to tell you the truth, they're also the youngest people in the gym that don't have actual day job. Well, they have actual day jobs, but they don't have families. They might have a girlfriend or something like that, but like no responsibilities like we have. So I'm like,
their
more power
obligations
to you, man.
list is short.
Yeah, more power to them, and I'll be there for them, and hopefully they start winning more, and it gets them promoted faster because they're crushing people, and it's like it comes to the point where you're in your jiu-jitsu journey where back when we first started, I would be like, man, this guy's competing and winning, he's going to get promoted faster than me, or he's going to get stripes before me, but now I'm like, whatever, good for them. I honestly am happy for them when they win or lose or learn or whatever. Like now you get to a point in your life where you realize like, jiu-jitsu isn't everything for me anymore. Like I don't even like really watching jiu-jitsu tournaments, to tell you the truth. I know it sounds bad having a jiu-jitsu podcast, but I'm not a student of the game like that. You know what I mean? Like I find watching some jiu-jitsu pretty boring, unless it's like combat jiu-jitsu or like EBI. I think EBI is really entertaining because or Fight to Win, where it's just, I don't know, the whole platform and they get hyped up and everything like that. But like watching IBJJF, honestly, really kind of boring to me. I don't know.
I only watch the highlights from those, like the big tournaments, right? Like even ADCC, it's like I'll just I'll catch the reels like after the fact for anything that was like wild or impressive or relevant. Because I agree with you, like the Fight to Win, like the super fights, like I don't love the term calling jiu-jitsu a fight necessarily, right? Like. But I mean, combat jiu-jitsu is close, but still not, right? Still not quite there.
Yeah. Same.
But the super fights, like you said, where it's like an event, this person, you get hyped up. Those are also much more appealing to me than like bracketed format tournaments with most people that you don't know, and like and then points, like playing the points too. No one ever trying to like actually, right, exactly. Yep. So I agree. As much as I love it, I fully agree that it can definitely be pretty boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey Ben, so what would your one tip for a brand new white belt be for starting their jiu-jitsu journey that you've learned over time?
Well, I apologize for, I guess, digging back and pulling something up that we already talked about. But the biggest thing that I had to do, and I think the most important thing for everyone to do, is just at least think about or reframe how you look at success. We talked about it, right? Like instead of looking at, if I don't get the submission, like if I don't win, I lost, so to speak, or he tapped me twice, I got him once. Like, so now I lost, right? So I think you have to change how you look at progress, right? So, and it can be little things like, I showed up all 3 days this week. Like for us, we talked about the obsessive part. It can become, it can go one, but it can go the other way too. People will sign up, they're really interested, but then they're afraid or nervous, right? They make excuses, right? So even just committing to a schedule, say I'm going to show up twice a week, showing up twice a week, that is a form of progress, right? That's a win. Sucking less, right? So like going from tapping 5 times to 3 times, from tapping 3 times to 0 times, and then slowly the scale starts to tip the other direction, and then you're getting submissions, right? So then they're tapping to you. So temper your expectations, right? And reframe the way that you look at success. Maybe focus more on progress, right? So like the advancement that you're making than the direct end result itself. That would be the biggest thing for me personally.
Yeah, and the sooner you realize what your goals are, the faster you'll progress, because you'll know exactly what you're looking for. You know what I mean? Not having goals is not good. Benjamin Franklin said, "Failing to prepare is preparing to fail." You know what I mean? So if you don't know where you want to go, then you're never going to get there. It's like taking a road trip with no final destination. Yeah, it's going to be fun on the way there. You might stop and see some cool things, but at the end of the day, at one point you're going to be like, okay, but what do I really want to do?
What are we doing? Yeah.
Where do I actually want to go? Because I can't keep living a life like this.
Yeah.
So, John, you got anything else?
No, man, that's good advice. And, like I tell everyone all the time, I still try to talk people to come into classes, beginning. They're like, well, what's it like? And I'm like, man, if you do it for 6 months, you could probably defend yourself on anyone on the street that's never done it, right? A good 6
100%.
months. I said, at some point during that first year, you get where you're not so much worried about your self-defense because you've gotten that. Now your focus switches to kind of like beating other jiu-jitsu practitioners. And it's just, but I just try to talk them into that first 6 months. And normally that hooks them, and then they're good for the rest of it.
Right. The jiu-jitsu does the rest of the work.
Yeah. They get bit by the bug, and they're like, I showed up. All right, I might as well keep going. The hardest part is showing up. It's kind of like with everything, right? Like going to the gym, the hardest part is showing up to the gym, and then it's easy from there. The hardest part is getting off your couch and taking that first step into a new journey, whether it's weight loss, fitness, jiu-jitsu, any type of martial arts. Once you make that first step, it gets a whole lot easier from there, but it also gets a whole lot harder in other aspects. So, but hey, Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. This was a great conversation. You did not talk a lot like you were prefacing before this. I think you answered the questions beautifully, and I think people are going to find a lot of value in what you have to say, man. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I'm glad that it was not too much rambling. I did try to consciously back myself up, but make sure I didn't not say anything either too. You know what I mean? I'm sure there were a couple times where I talked over, interrupted. So thank you for being a gracious, supportive host. But yeah, thanks guys for doing this. I've recently found your podcast. I think I came in at the Drew Phoenix episode. And I've gone back, bounced back around and listened. Like you had Chad Wesley Smith on, which has some overlap for me from the more of the fitness space.
Yeah, Jason
so I was
Khalifa.
interested. And that actually, funny enough, after you sent me the invite, I started listening to that one. So yeah, I enjoy listening to it. I've really enjoyed being on here today. Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, if people want to follow you and look at your journey or talk to you about nutrition help or whatever, where can they find you at?
So the place I'm the busiest or the most active, you can find me on Instagram. It's at ben.jitsu, ben.jitsu. You can check, I have a website. It's benjitsu.online. If you just go to that, or check out my podcast too. It's not necessarily as much about the coaching, and it is not jiu-jitsu focused, although there are jiu-jitsu athletes who've been on. Going back to talking about Drew Phoenix one more time, he was on my show as well. But yeah, that's the What Now podcast, and you can find that on Instagram too at what.now.pod. But for the most part, find me on Instagram. That links out to everything. You can send me a message. You can just scroll through and see what I'm about, because I try to just, do my thing, like I said, for better or worse. So,
well, cool. Hopefully you get a bunch of followers from this. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, we're not a very big podcast, so we probably...
That's fine. I'll get the elbows tight, the elbows tight bump and followers.
That's right. You're like... What's funny is, like, when people say elbows tight now, you'll always remember us, okay? Just remember that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, that already started, but now it's solidified after today.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ben. Guys, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Elbows Tight everywhere, Elbows Tight Pod on Instagram. We are We have patches. If you guys want a patch, make sure that you guys send us a patch. A P.O. box is going to be down in the description and on our Instagram and everything like that. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify and iTunes. That's how we actually get found by people like Manscaped and all the sponsors and whatnot. So that actually does make the biggest difference if you guys give us a 5-star review and share with a friend. So thank you guys so much. John, you got anything else?
Nope. Thanks a lot, man. Pleasure.
Thank you guys for watching. And remember, no oil checks here.
Goose.
All right, guys. Thank you.